My name is Daniel. I'm 33, from Michigan. I used to be a firefighter. Strong, capable, invincible, I thought. But after the accident, I was left paralyzed from the waist down. Just a man in a wheelchair with fading dignity and shattered pride. It was a rainy Thursday when she came into my life. "I'm Claire. I'm here to help take care of you," she smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Her voice was soft, her touch gentle, and in those first few weeks, she felt like my lifeline. She cooked for me, helped me bathe. She even read me books when the nights got too long and the silence too loud. Sometimes I caught her looking at me with something that looked like pain or pity. I couldn't tell, but I needed her. One evening, I woke up thirsty. The glass of water I usually kept near my bed had spilled. I wheeled myself slowly down the hallway toward the kitchen, careful not to make noise. The lights were off, but I could hear voices, soft, hushed. Claire was on the phone. Her back was turned to me. I should have gone back. I should have respected her privacy. But then I heard her whisper, "It won't be long now. He'll die soon anyway." I froze. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. She hung up seconds later, unaware I had heard. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, in the dark, alone. Who was she talking to? Why would she say that? The next morning, she was back to normal. Smiling, making pancakes, asking me if I slept well. I lied. I told her I did. But inside me, something had broken. And then, 3 days later, I found a letter she had accidentally dropped, partially hidden under the couch. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to someone named Elliot. "Don't worry," it read. "It's almost done. Once he's gone, everything will be ours. I just need a little more time. Trust me, he still thinks I care." My hands trembled as I read it again and again, hoping I was wrong, hoping this was some sick misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew. I didn't confront her. Not immediately. I needed to know more. I needed proof, something undeniable. So I started pretending I hadn't heard her whisper those words, pretending I hadn't seen the letter, pretending I was still the broken man who clung to her kindness like a life raft. But every day I watched her more closely. I noticed things I'd never seen before. How she always left the room to take certain calls. How she never looked me in the eye for too long. How her smiles didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. Then one night, when she stepped out to get groceries, I searched her room. I don't know what gave me the courage. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the fear of dying without answers. I found a second phone, hidden inside a drawer, wrapped in an old scarf. My hands shook as I turned it on. Messages flooded the screen. "Elliot, has he signed the papers yet?" "Claire, soon. He trusts me completely. He'll never see it coming." "Elliot, we need the money, Claire. Stop dragging it out." "Money? Papers?" That night I didn't sleep. My mind was spinning. The next morning I told Claire I wanted to change my will, that I was ready to let go of the past. Her eyes lit up. She tried to hide it, but I saw it, that flicker of victory. She even hugged me, whispered, "You're doing the right thing." I called my lawyer, but I had a plan of my own. We met in secret. I explained everything. Every whisper, every lie, every text. He didn't say much, just nodded and said, "We'll protect you, Daniel." The following week, Claire wheeled me into the study, smiling like she always did. On the table were the papers. She placed a pen in my hand. I looked up at her, and for the first time, I smiled back. As I signed each page slowly, I could feel her breath hitch in anticipation. She stood just a little too close, like she couldn't wait to snatch the papers from my hands the moment I finished. "Almost done?" she asked softly, her voice sweet like honey laced with venom. I nodded. "Just the last signature left." I paused and looked up at her. "Claire, do you believe people can change?" She tilted her head. "Of course. Why?" I held her gaze. "Because I did. I changed the day I realized you never really loved me." Her smile faltered for the briefest second. "What are you talking about?" I pushed the papers toward her. "You might want to read the fine print." She frowned, flipping through the documents. Then her face turned pale. Because the will she thought she was receiving, the one where I supposedly left her everything, was a decoy. The real papers had already been signed and filed. My assets secured. My lawyer had made sure of that. This isn't," she stammered. "No, it's not," I interrupted. "And neither am I. I'm not the helpless man you thought I was. Not anymore." Her face twisted. "You went through my things?" You whispered I'd die soon. I had no choice. She looked like she wanted to scream, but instead she turned cold. You don't know what you're doing, Daniel. You think the law will protect you? You think anyone cares what happens to a broken man in a wheelchair? I let out a soft laugh, and then I turned toward the door. Come in. 2 officers stepped into the room, quietly, firmly. Claire froze. I looked at her one last time. This broken man had enough strength left to protect himself. She didn't resist, just stood there, silent, cornered, exposed, as the officers read her rights. And yet, as they led her away, she turned back to me and whispered with bitterness in her voice, "You think you've won? Elliot won't stop." I stared at her as the door shut behind them, and in that silence I finally exhaled. But the silence didn't last. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow felt like it carried a name, Elliot. I had the locks changed, installed cameras. My lawyer insisted I stay somewhere else for a while, somewhere safe. But I refused. This was my home. I had already lost too much. I wasn't going to give him that too. 3 days after Claire's arrest, I received an envelope. No return address, just my name, written in shaky pen. Inside was a photograph. It was me, sitting by the fireplace just 2 weeks ago. The photo had been taken from outside the window. My hands went numb. There was no note, just the image. But the message was clear. He was watching. I called the police. They took it seriously, opened an investigation. But there was no fingerprint, no clue, no trace. Whoever Elliot was, he was careful. And he wasn't done. 2 days later, my doorbell rang at midnight. I didn't answer it. I watched through the camera feed. A tall man in a hoodie stood motionless, staring at the door. He held something in his hand, a single rose. He placed it on the doorstep and walked away, slow, deliberate, like he wanted to be seen but not caught. The next morning, tucked beneath the rose's stem, I found a note. "You took her from me. Now I'll take everything from you." I folded the note, locked it away. My heart pounded like it used to in burning buildings. But I wasn't running anymore. He wanted war. And I was done being the victim. I started preparing, not just my home, but myself. I contacted an old friend from the fire department, Marcus. He'd moved into private security after retirement. When I told him everything, he didn't hesitate. "I've seen men like this before," he said. "Cowards in the shadows. We'll smoke him out." Marcus helped reinforce the house. Cameras with motion sensors, reinforced doors, emergency buttons wired to the local station. But more than that, he trained me, physically, mentally. Taught me how to maneuver, how to defend, how to fight, even from my chair. Because I knew Elliot wasn't going to stop with threats. He was waiting, watching, calculating. And then, a week later, it happened. It was a little after 2 a.m. when the back window shattered. I was awake. I rolled to the hallway, hit the silent alarm, and waited, just like Marcus trained me. The power cut out seconds later. Total darkness, except for the soft red glow of the emergency lights. I heard him moving, deliberate, slow. He thought I'd be helpless, but I wasn't the man I used to be. I wasn't the man he thought I was. As he entered the living room, I turned on the spotlight. It hit him in the face like a punch. He flinched, instinctively raising a hand to block it. That's when I saw him clearly for the first time. Young, early 30s, sharp jaw, cold eyes. He looked nothing like the monster I had imagined. He looked human, but his eyes were empty. "Where is she?" He growled. "In jail," I replied calmly, "where you'll be soon." He laughed. "You think that'll stop me?" "No," I said, locking the wheels of my chair, "but this might." Marcus stepped out from the hallway, taser in hand. Elliot turned just a second too late. A flash, a scream, then silence. The police arrived minutes later. Elliot was on the ground, breathing but unconscious. It was over. At least I thought it was.